All right, and welcome into the In Between Fantasy Football Podcast, your place for both a refreshing and feel-good take on fantasy football and NFL gambling. NFL free agency went off in a big way with the fantasy football landscape shifting seismically, along with every deal and trade made. We'll talk about the 17 biggest risers and fallers in our redraft rankings, along with the results. I'm your host, Seth Woolcock, just starting to catch my breath from the onslaught of the moves that came just over the last day or two. And back with me to break it all down is a man who's the general manager of this particular program and company. He's our big business, light ranching son of a gun, Eric Romoff Tex. How's it hanging down there, man?
Man, it's good. We're here. This is the part of the year where our designs on playing general manager are probably the most inflamed, right? Everyone knows where the next free agent's going to land, what kind of contract's going to splash out there. We all know the exact plan for every team, and then we get like a third of them right, at least in terms of our predictions ahead of the time. So now we actually get to see where the dust settles and how it ultimately impacts the fantasy landscape.
Yes, we absolutely will. And looking big business over there with the glasses on and everything coming to play, Eric Romoff.
Come on.
Yes, sir. And joining us also is a man who will never experience free agency yet again because he signed a lifetime deal with us here at IBT, whether he likes it or not. He's our NFL and entertainment betting expert. He's Boston's boy, Steve Lawson. Steven, how's it going up there in Beantown as the first 2 days of free agency looks to be coming to a close?
It's been quiet. In typical Patriots fashion, we didn't do a ton, although we did just make kind of a splashy-ish move.
Yeah.
It's an overpay, but you can overpay when you have a guy on a rookie deal. As far as feeling like we can be GMs, I've watched a lot of this offseason, and frankly, I think the hardest part of being a GM is getting the job in the first place. After that, it seems kind of easy because half the teams did a terrible job.
Well, and this is a time where, we can all say there were overpays for certain players, but that's like the luxury that these players get by reaching the open market, right? You're going to have to overpay, especially if you're a bad team. Like, I mean, if you're the Patriots, it's one thing because you just went to the Super Bowl. But if you're someone like the Raiders or the Browns or the Jets, or even the Dolphins suddenly, you kind of have to do a little bit of an overpay to get your guys in the building to come to a rocky organization, to say the least. But guys, we'll break it all down. Excited for both of you to be here with me tonight. And a quick reminder that the easiest way to support us is go ahead, give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy this type of content. Let us know, do you like the new intro? It's a little shorter. Didn't give you the full theme song that you hear on the podcast audio version, but wanted to speed things up a little bit to get into the content quicker.
How long has that been the theme song, Seth? How long has that song
so
we ended something that might have been going on for a long time.
We've had a theme song similar to that for about 4 to 5 years. The first 2 or 3 years of the show, we changed the theme song every single year. We got a banger then from our boy Nate Miller, still beyond the audio version. But yeah, I think we've been rocking with that one, a variant of that, probably for about 3 or 4 years. So it's been a long time, but justifiably, we'll keep that to the audio version now, Steve.
Wow, it's an end of an era. I think it's something that you wanna acknowledge, I guess, like a little bit. Damn.
Yeah, you see us enough on the program. You don't need to see us in action shots, I guess, too. But I do enjoy the the sitcom like reel that it was.
You want me to put us in the little
no,
things?
No, that's okay. That's okay. You did a great job on the intro. Either way, though, Steve. And also make sure you guys are subscribing to the brand new IBT podcast sub channel on YouTube. That's where it's NFL football all the time right there. So you can subscribe, youtube.com/@IBT podcast. Make sure you're checking out the audio version wherever you're listening, whether that's Apple, Spotify, iHeart. Go ahead and subscribe there as well. We'd really appreciate that. And a quick reminder that you can also always find us in the IBT football family. That's our exclusive community where you can get access to chat with all of our analysts and viewers, plus entry into our memorabilia giveaways at absolutely no cost. It has been buzzing over there lately. Seems like we get a new member every single day or two. So really appreciate the new folks coming to ride alongside with us, because not only do we have that chatting and giveaways to offer, but also our full betting cards and the touchdown call contest you can get to upgrade for $3.99 per month or $36 for the year. That's also going to include unlocking all the benefits for the IBT Racing family, the IBT Entertainment family, and the IBT Golf family, We have all the betting models, all the betting picks you can need over there, the conversations, as well as contests like the PGA One and Done, the NASCAR head-to-head tournament, and of course the Survivor Fantasy League, which has been going off pretty well. I think the kid's sitting up there in third. So come beat us in those. We want to hear from you. We want to play against you, try to crush the competition with you. So again, you can join for free now in Dash Between Me at .com/chat, or link is in the episode description. And boys, let's go ahead and fire it up here with a little front and center.
Sometimes taking that first step out the door is the hardest thing to do. Give it a chance, you'll be begging for more. Save the spot just for you. We're all somewhere in between. I thought you'd come to the place you can have some fun. Ain't gotta worry about knowing not what it means. Keep come and give me another, cause the night is young. At least I so thought.
This just in. Breaking news. Front and center.
Front and center, we got moves, and we got a lot of them quickly on Monday afternoon once the legal tampering period opened up. And it started with none other than the Indianapolis Colts signing wide receiver Alec Pierce to an extension, the biggest free agent contract a receiver's ever inked at 4 years, $116 million. And this was a guy that, we were on pretty early this season that, hey, maybe it's a breakout. I don't think any of us expected this type of number to come through for Alec Pierce. So when we were sitting back in September and October and seeing this guy go off, subsequently then they ship off a wide receiver Michael Pittman Jr. to the Pittsburgh Steelers for a late round pick swap. And I really think the winners of this are pretty clear. I think it's the entire group of pass catchers for the Colts. Of course, it's Alec Pierce, that former Cincinnati Bearcat second-round pick back in the day, coming off that career year where he turned only 84 targets into 47 receptions, 1,000+ yards, 6 touchdowns. That was good enough for 12.2 fantasy points per game, the 26th most by the position. And with Pittman vacating over 111 targets, and Danny Dimes is expected to be a full go on that transition tag, maybe getting a deal done in the time between now and then. Pierce, to me, I think he's going to become the de facto alpha on this team. I think that gives him high-end wide receiver 2 upside. I think he'll still go for a wide receiver 3 price tag. And I also think this raises the ceilings for one Tyler Warren, who's going to re-enter that top 3 tight end discussion. And also slot man Josh Downs, who was someone I was really fading in drafts. I think now he is going to become an early double-digit round target that, hey, is someone you can go after, especially in PPR leagues if you just need to fill a flex spot. So, Steve, what was your takeaway here from the Alec Pierce news, other than maybe it was an overpay? But for fantasy, do you agree with my assessment that the Colts pass catchers are winners?
Yes, but I also feel like a winner. I traded Alec Pierce today for the 111 in a rookie draft.
Ooh, I like that.
And that was sent to me. I woke up this morning to that. So that was a nice way to wake up this morning.
Yeah.
I think this is good because there's just one less mouth to feed, right? And that's kind of that's why this is good for a pass catcher. It's good for it's good for Jonathan Taylor. It's good for Tyler Warren. It's good for Josh Downs. It's great for Alec Pierce and his family and his generations of Pierces that may come and reap the benefits of his massive, way too big extent. There was a lot of wins. I am shocked that you didn't take this opportunity, though, Seth, to say that this is a win for your Pittsburgh Steelers.
Well,
do you not consider this a victory? You just got your wide receiver 2 that you guys so desperately needed, who, if you got him last year for this price tag, I think there would have been people naked dancing in the streets thinking that this was the end of the world. Like, you just stole Michael Pittman.
Hey, I'm sure there's some people who are celebrating down on the North Shore with a couple of Iron City Lights, and Pittsburgh Steelers are definitely a winner from just a pure NFL franchise standpoint. For what it means for Michael Pittman, I think it's kind of like a net neutral, right? Because he's going to a different team. Let's say they bring out back Aaron Rodgers. He's now splitting targets with DK Metcalf. So for a fantasy, I think the impact lies with the Colts. Eric, do you also see this as a positive for the likes of Pierce, Downs, and my boy Tyler Warren out there in the crossroads of America?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? To Steve's point, I think this is a huge win for Alec Pierce. What a great year to catch 50 or so balls, right? All of a sudden breaking free agency contract records. So he's very happy about it. From a fantasy perspective, I actually think it's probably a bad thing for Alec Pierce, to Steve's point, right? People see the big contract. They're going to expect him to perform in a commensurate fashion, and he's probably not going to, right? I think we'll probably see a pretty similar season to what we got out of him last year, aka like 12 or 13 points a game, and people are going to draft him as like a top 15, top 18 wide receiver.
You don't think that ceiling can go up? Because now I think they use him a little bit underneath and a little bit more in that intermediate game. Like I think he could be pacing 10 targets per game now that we get Pittman out of the way, who is seeing a lot of that
for the
underneath
coach
stuff.
Speech. You're falling for the coach speak that's coming out.
Money.
Yeah,
look,
they paid too much. They just got Hollywood Brown 2.0.
And this was last year was proof of concept, right? Like they found a way to maximize his skill set. And granted, like Alec Pierce was a punchline prior to last year, right? So like they maximized his skill set. I think a lot of that underneath work that is going out the door with Michael Pittman, which by the way, they got absolutely hosed both on the Pittman deal and on the Alec Pierce contract. But that underneath work goes to Bowie, your guy, Tyler Warren, and one of my favorite, I can't quit you, Josh Down targets out there, right? So I think the underneath work more reasonably goes to those guys, which will point their arrow up. And I don't think that they're going to steam up the same way that Alec Pierce will in the fantasy markets, right? So, I mean, it's one less mouth to feed, and that's great. I don't think it means that we see a ton of targets go Pierce's way. I think it's more kind of an even distribution between that of Warren and that of Downs.
Can I add another wrinkle to this situation? Is that we also saw Daniel Jones play at a level we've never seen him play before. And now he's coming off a torn Achilles.
Open question.
Like there's a huge question mark about whether or not that offense can stay that efficient. I mean, what was it, 3 weeks before they punted last year? I mean, it was going at a dummy rate. So I think we need to like curb expectations a bit.
Well, I'm just saying, if he was out there and he was pacing as a pretty decent wide receiver too, he's currently, and I'm sure this will rise, but on Underdog right now, the current live ADP for him is wide receiver 38 going off the board, 76 overall. And again, wide receivers are usually pushed up on Underdog too. So in your redrafts, I'll probably come down a little bit overall. But I mean, how could you not be in at that price though?
At that price, I'm in.
Yeah, like I'm sure
your days of getting him at wide receiver 38 are gone.
Where's the line of demarcation for you, Eric? Like where does he go too high in drafts that you wouldn't be interested?
I mean, I feel pretty good drafting him as like a fringe wide receiver 3, like 25, 27. I'm pretty comfortable there.
Okay. Yeah, then I feel like we should all be celebrating for Alec Pierce. I think this is going to be great for him.
He's not going to go around there, though.
I was the president of the Alec Pierce fan club last year. I was in on Alec Pierce when Alec Pierce's mom wasn't in on Alec Pierce. Like, I like the guy. But, they paid him top of the line money. Like, it's just too much.
Huge L of an offseason for the Colts, generally.
Yes.
But one less mouth to feed. I think all these guys will see incremental, if not marginal upticks.
If you're Josh Downs right now, you must just be, I mean, you went from 6 to 12 real quick.
Yeah. I just think I think there's a chance that this guy is living in that 14 to 15 points per game range if all goes well. And you're right, Steve. Like there are a lot of question marks. Daniel Jones played at one of the higher levels. Like I will say, there was that season where he did lead the Giants to a playoff victory. Again, most of that season was predicated on his legs rather than his arm. But I'm excited to see what he can do out there. Let's move forward, though, to one of the splashier moves, I would say, that we saw. And it comes by way of Kenneth Walker joining the Kansas City Chiefs on a 3-year, $45 million contract. And this said two things to me. Like, one, if Breece Hall was available in this class, I think he is the pass catcher and running back that they would prefer down there. He was not. He is trapped in purgatory up there in New York for at least the moving forward future. But then also, like, it says that, hey, they were not going to get Jeremiah Love with that first overall pick that they have, I think, coming in at 10 or 9. I can't remember. Are they 9? Are they 10? I think they're 10.
9.
In the draft order. But either way, Steve, you think Kenneth Walker becomes a clear winner here? And this also comes on the heels of the news Isaiah Pacheco now with the Lions.
Yeah, I think this I don't think Isaiah Pacheco has anything to do with this signing whatsoever, other than the fact that he's not a very good running back. But I think this is a huge. There's no way to look at this other than it's a huge win for Kenneth Walker. He's going from a team that was just absolutely convinced that he couldn't get the ball into the end zone, and they let him work between the 20s, and then gave it to Charbonnet, and then now he's on a team that, I mean, unless Andy Reid really thinks Kareem Hunt still has something left in the tank to show after averaging like sub 4 yards a carry this season, looking like he's running with cement shoes on. This is Kenneth Walker's chance to be the bell cow that he wants to be. He's really on at that age. He's like 25 years old. He's probably not getting another massive contract after this because he's going to be like 28, probably get a franchise tag. If he stays healthy, that'll be a 29. And that'll kind of be the end of it. But this is really exciting because he's going to play with the best play caller he's ever played with, which is a huge, not a knock on Kubiak in Seattle, but Kubiak didn't really use him the way I thought that people should have used him. We heard Collinsworth be like, oh, he's not a great pass catcher. Well, he used to be. That's actually something that he really excelled at in college. He had really nice hands. He's a pretty soft-handed guy. I think this is going to be an opportunity for Kenneth Walker with all of the question marks that are on that Chiefs offense, especially at the skill positions, with Rashee Rice probably facing a significant suspension. Xavier Worthy not really coming into his own. Travis Kelce's 150 years old, and then it's a bunch of Jags. On top of that, this could be Kenneth Walker's opportunity to really shine and probably push, if he gets the bell cow work in Kansas City, push for that RB1 position overall in fantasy this year.
Wow. Okay. I do like this move for Walker. Obviously, like you said, Steve, it opens up the goal line quite a bit. And this is a Chiefs team that I think Eric really has to start finding a new identity. And this is part of it, right? You have Mahomes coming off the torn ACL. You have Travis Kelce, another year older, back in the fold once again, I would say as well. But Walker has actually never finished as an RB1 for fantasy for a season-long perspective. Like if we're just talking total points, for points per game, he's been there, but he's been nicked up a time or two. This past season, he did play all 17 games, but only finishes the RB22 just because he only had 5 touchdowns in the regular season before he kind of went turbo here in the postseason. So, Eric, what is your synopsis here for Kenneth Walker? He's someone currently also on Underdog. Right now on that 2-3 turn, 25 overall, RB13. Does that sound about right to you? Would you be investing at that particular price?
I would be. I'm incredibly bullish on Kenneth Walker. I mean, just a dream scenario for him to land into. Really all of the points that Steve made, I'll look to underscore here, right? And I'll add to it by saying this very much so is a team in transition, right? We think about the open question as to whether or not Rashee Rice will be there. We think about the lack of sustained success that we've seen from Xavier Worthy, right? Like I think for the Chiefs, especially in the context of Patrick Mahomes' injury and availability question marks, we're looking at a very run heavy scheme and system for next year and potentially the transition into that, right? You think about some of those LaShawn McCoy years that Andy Reid had towards his tail end of the run in Philadelphia, and that could very much so be the blueprint for what the Chiefs are trying to do. And to Steve's point, Kenneth Walker was never regarded as a huge pass catching option. They didn't ask him to do it a ton in college, but when he did it and when he's been asked to do it in the NFL, nice hands, can make a guy miss in the open field, can pull away from guys, like checks a lot of boxes for what you're looking for. The only thing that I'll add that we haven't talked about here, coming back in as the offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs, Eric Bieniemy, who was the run game coordinator for the Chicago Bears last year and did a lot with some pretty league average type of guys.
You call him Jags, you call him mid,
and Kyle Monungai, right? So if you think about the pedigree and the scheme that Reid has shown over the course of his career and that specialization that Bieniemy seems to really have carved out for himself in his time since leaving Kansas City, now that he's back, like I think this is going to be one of the more prolific run games in all of the NFL.
Redraft full PPR. Would you rather Derrick Henry or Kenneth Walker?
Kenneth Walker.
Kenneth Walker.
Chase Brown.
Kenneth Walker.
Kenneth Walker.
Saquon Barkley.
Kenneth Walker.
Barkley.
I'll take Barkley. Jeremiah Love.
Kenneth Walker right now. I don't know where he is.
Okay, I'll take Love. Oh, Marion Hampton, last one.
Kenneth Walker.
Hampton.
I'll take
Ooh,
Hampton.
Hampton's
Okay.
gonna be fun.
Yes. And speaking of another 2025 rookie running back that's going to be fun, I think. I'm back in, boys. I said I wasn't coming back in. I'm back in. Fired up. Ashton Jeanty here, one of my biggest winners for the Raiders. I love what Las Vegas is doing. The pieces they're putting together, folks. Tyler Lindenbaum secures himself a 3-year, $81 million contract with the Raiders. And I just think Lindenbaum's the perfect fit for this Kubiak offense because we've seen, whether it was in Seattle or at teams before, you need an elite center that not only can get out and pull with great athletic tendencies, but also you need a high IQ player that's going to be able to make some of those checks at the line and take some of that pressure off Fernando Mendoza. And they also started beefing up this defense a little bit as well. All of a sudden, Quay Walker coming over from the Green Bay Packers. And Nakobe Dean, how are you? Kwity Paye, who maybe didn't have the career everyone thought he was going to be, first-round pick out there in Indianapolis, but he comes to add a little pass rush here. They're losing one of the best pass rushers in the entire league here, Max Crosby, but they're also lining themselves up where, hey, they have 2 first-round picks this year. They also own that 33rd overall pick. They got 2 first-round picks next year. Eric, am I crazy to be back in here on Jeanty right now on Underdog? He's another guy who going right in that second first round turn, 12 overall, RB7. I'm hooked, man. What can I say? I thought I tried to get out, but I'm back in, baby. Just like a cult.
Just when I think I'm out, they pull me back in.
Nice.
I think end of the first is probably a little rich, but I mean, you can quibble with it if you want. It's in range, right? Jeanty is a huge winner. If for nothing else, like you said, they added to, in a significant way, the offensive line. You've got Clint Kubiak coming in, which we've seen nothing but success out of the run game when he's been on the sticks at the NFL level. If nothing else, I mean, we're projecting a bit, but Fernando Mendoza should at least not be entirely inept and a liability behind him under center, right? So now we're looking at an offense where the arrow is pretty definitively pointing up. The only bogey out there, Clint Kubiak still refuses to make a firm commitment that he's not going to go out there and add a second ball carrier. Sure. So that is legitimately an open question as we get down to kind of the slim pickings range of the free agency period, or maybe as we get into the NFL draft in April. If we clear both of those hurdles and there's not a name of note to join him in the backfield in Las Vegas, then it's wheels up. I mean, you can absolutely make a case for this guy to be a top 5, top 6 type of running back if you want to get really aggressive.
Yeah, and Steve, I wasn't comfortable taking Ashton Jeanty at that 1-2 turn before this, just because I was like, hey, I got burnt last year. I was taking him, top 4, top 5, top 6 overall. So, 101 in the Scott Fishbowl, different scoring. Are you comfortable with that price tag now that a guy like Lindenbaum, who just seems like he's going to fit this offense perfectly, comes into town?
No, I'm not. And listen, I was the Jeanty detractor last season too, and it's not about Ashton Jeanty, but I know it's a new head coach and I know it's a new system, but it's a system that worries me still. Clint Kubiak is not exactly known for pumping out RB1 finishes as a head coach. He likes his committees. He is going to get a committee. I am sure of it. I don't think it's going to be like an insignificant addition. I think there's a real chance that someone like Emmett Johnson ends up a Raider in this draft and takes some work away from Ashton Jeanty, some significant work away from Ashton Jeanty. I think now, listen, we can revisit this in May, June, July, as we will. And if all stays the same and all of a sudden the next guy on the roster is Antonio Gibson, sure, sign me up. Wheels up, let's go. But just because Antonio Gibson's been robbed too many times and he's just not going to be he's coming off a fresh ACL tear.
Dude,
I
never thought I'd live to see the day that Steve Lawson was taking shots at Antonio Gibson in front of
It's not a shot at Antonio
Gibson.
Gibson.
What a time to be alive.
It's just a running back that I thought he's not going to come in and be the bell cow and take those goal line carries. But I think Jeanty, there's still way too many roadblocks right now for me to be I'm wheels up on him, where there's a lot of guys who have no question marks.
Yeah, don't forget
that's the bogey, right? Kubiak is known for a multi-headed or split workload backfield. If Jeanty gets out without a significant running mate, you got to feel good about him. if he goes out and adds someone who looks like a threat but is a free agent, more of the veteran style, Jeanty is a huge buy in Dynasty, right?
Mhm.
If the running mate
Mhm.
that comes in is through the draft, I think you got to proceed with caution.
And like, let's not forget too, in 2024, Alvin Kamara was an absolute stud, even coming off of a couple missed games at the beginning of the season. And Clint Kubiak just fed and fed and fed him to an RB1 finish. But they really didn't have any other options, right? They had the ghost of Kendre Miller and, a couple practice squad guys here and there, but nothing too exciting. So
They didn't have
I'm
a
really
quarterback. They didn't have a wide
well,
receiver. They didn't have a tight
sure,
end. It was
sure,
like, it was
sure.
kind of just, there was no other option.
Yeah, that is fair. Eric, you're also high on one of the players that absolutely just went out there and got a bag after just, one or two big games here in 2025. Malik Willis going to the Dolphins on a 3-year, $67.5 million contract and really developed well, I'd say, under Matt LaFleur after being traded by the Titans in 2024, drafted out of Liberty in 2022. In his one start in 2025, Willis finished as the quarterback 3 in fantasy football championship weeks as well, 31.5 fantasy points. And then 2024, he had those 2 starts, both pretty spotty starts. We didn't think we were going to get Willis. I remember the one day against the Colts, and I slammed the Colts money line, did not come to fruition. The Packers ended up upsetting them. And in those 2024 starts, he averaged 19.1 fantasy points per game, including a top 6 weekly finish. So I'm really, I think from like a redraft perspective, I like Willis a lot here, especially in this Bobby Slowick offense. He's got weapons like Jaylen Waddle and WR Etienne. I'm still kind of a sell-in dynasty. Like, I don't know how long this lasts. It could be a year or 2 thing because I've just had the rug pulled out from under me with these mobile quarterbacks going to, dysfunctional organization. So, Eric, from a short-term lens and maybe even a long-term dynasty lens, what do you think this does for Malik Willis's value?
It does a lot for him. As an editorial note, if you are a backup quarterback and you want to get a bag, go hold the clipboard in Green Bay. Like, I can't believe how many guys are getting absolutely paid after just a few starts there for the Packers. Malik Willis
back in the
now
day.
added to that name. I mean, look, you mentioned, $67 million on his total contract, $45 million guaranteed. And that is very much so why I like this for Malik Willis, because I think that it is a vote of confidence from the brand new Packers tinted regime. So he's going to have plenty of runway throughout the course of this year and potentially into next year. But also from a contract standpoint, it moves him out of that like bridge short-term rental type of territory like we saw with Justin Fields last year, right? I think that they are going to, in earnest, give Malik Willis a chance to win this job, as literally everything else is completely on fire around him in the Dolphins organization, right? So that opportunity is crucial. And we're now seeing him step into a Bobby Slowick offense, which has posted fantasy points several times over when he's been on the sticks. We're seeing him step into one of the better, if not at least a very good offensive line situations there in Miami. But moreover, that pairing with him and WR Etienne out of that backfield, some of that read option, some of those delays, some of those swings out of the backfield are going to be absolutely electric, right? And I'm not even sure if Malik Willis doesn't potentially step into like a de facto goal line back role in this offense, right? So the touchdown equity is off the charts. The speed out of the combo between Malik Willis and WR Etienne is arguably unrivaled throughout the entirety of the NFL, right? So there's a lot of explosive upside. Obviously, after Jaylen Waddle, the pass catchers leave a lot to be desired, right? So I don't think he's going to be out there setting any passing records for the Miami Dolphins. But with a guy like this, you mentioned the dynasty lens. He was someone that was either on your taxi squad or potentially getting cut not that long ago. Yeah. And now you've got a season or 2 of runway and potentially some viability for him, right? If he plays his cards right and he can go out there and post some numbers, he might be looking at another big contract in a couple years' time. And that is the rags to rich story that dynasty championships are built on.
Yeah, right now I have Malik Willis in my redraft rankings up to quarterback 12. I don't think saying that he has QB1 upside is an overstatement, because this is a very similar situation to Anthony Richardson a couple years. And when he was out there, he was providing fantasy points, at least as a rookie, before he got banged up and didn't even have quite the cast of characters or as good of a line as what we're going to see here from Malik Willis. And as you said, it's just a very good vote of confidence, right? From a guy in Jeff Hafley, who, Malik Willis was a scout team quarterback playing against Jeff's defense every single day the last 2 years out in Green Bay. Also, John Eric Sullivan, the GM, coming over from that Packers organization as well. So they both have very high confidence in him. Steve, you might not have as much confidence, though, because you actually have Jaylen Waddle, his wide receiver one, as a loser in this ordeal.
Yeah, I like fantasy wise, sure, Malik Willis will put up like some numbers because he can run. Real life situation, this is bad. This is not good. And for Jaylen Waddle, it's worse. In those starts where he played for Green Bay, Malik Willis had a 38% pass rate, I believe. They threw the ball about 38% of plays. So unless the Miami Dolphins really do plan on committing to running the ball 62% of the time, I think this is a recipe for absolute disaster for the Dolphins, for Malik Willis, and for Jaylen Waddle. Because here's the thing. Malik Willis has a cannon. Absolute bazooka.
Yeah.
Can't hit the broadside of a barn. Can't hit the broadside of a barn. Cannot throw. He could not hit the ocean throwing off a boat. I mean, it is bad. And Jaylen Waddle is not a big man. He's not a big receiver. He comes in under 6 feet. He's all about speed and getting the ball in stride and using that speed to his advantage. And that requires kind of some pinpoint accuracy that Willis just doesn't have. Now, you can flip it and be like, well, now he has the deep ball that Tua didn't have, and it'll let Waddle go run under it. That's great. But now you need a head coach that's going to utilize you in the right way, and a coaching staff that, I mean, you guys have some faith in it. I do not. I don't like defensive-minded coaches usually as my head coach, bringing in a new system, running this kind of idea. I'm very nervous that this is going to be a very run-heavy offense because Malik Willis, dropping him back half the time is a recipe for disaster, and they're not trying to get fired. So at the end of the day, they're going to do what they think it puts the team in the best position, not necessarily a player, and that's going to mean Jaylen Waddle is going to be very disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good point. I think that's a very fair point. I will say, watching back some of that tape from that Green Bay versus Ravens game, he was hitting some players in stride. We saw a couple Christian Watson slants that were able to hit him right in the sweet spot, layered over a couple of defenders, and he was able to break a couple down the seam then as well. So I do think it's a mixed bag for Jaylen Waddle. He's not necessarily someone like I'm targeting. I think necessarily, like I'm back, of course, on Etienne. I think everyone will be. Etienne's definitely going to go off probably in the top 12 picks of drafts. As far as Waddle goes, Eric, like what would be the price tag for you to get invested in someone like that? 50 overall, currently an underdog. Again, that's pushed up a little bit due to just the best ball nature of things. But wide receiver 25 right now in ADP.
I think that sounds about right. Honestly, look, Steve raises a bunch of fair points, right? You know, the counter to that is Malik Willis has absolutely developed in his time in Green Bay since, at least relative to what we were looking at with his time as a Titan, right? So he's taken a step forward, but I certainly don't think that he's the type of quarterback that's going to come in and support a top 15, top 18 wide receiver, right? So Jaylen Waddle's arrow is probably pointing down a good bit. But I don't think it's going to be entirely ineptitude out of this passing game. It will be run heavier. I think a lot of the fantasy production for Willis will come on the ground. But for Jaylen Waddle, I mean, if you're getting him right on that wide receiver 2, wide receiver cusp, I think that's fair, right? You know, you have to manage your expectations that, you know, those spike weeks probably aren't going to come as much as maybe we would have hoped based on his draft capital a few years ago. But, you know, he's not going to be, you know, an entire liability out there either. He will be the focal point of this passing game.
Yeah, we'll see what they can do in the draft if they add potentially another pass catcher to offset that. Let's go to another winner of mine, and it stems off this Travis Etienne news, taking his talents back home to the Bayou, baby. The Saints, they sign him to a 4-year, $52 million deal. The kid grew up just about 3 hours west of New Orleans here, so I think he was very excited to get back to his home state. And after missing his rookie year, ETN went on to total 1,000 rushing yards in 3 of 4 seasons with the Jaguars, including that RB3 finish back in 2023 that carried me to a couple chips, and then RB10 in 2025 when Steve was all over him as well. And I think like ETN, as far as he goes, like fine fit with Kellen Moore's power run scheme. I think he should be the focal point for a coach that, you know, really helped Saquon get over 2,000 yards a couple of seasons ago. And if Alvin Kamara is traded or released, I think Kamara or ETN is back in that low end RB1 candidacy. I still think like Tyler Shuck needs to target those RBs a little bit to like put him like in the top 6 to upside category, right? He only targeted RBs 3.8 times per game last season. That's down just about a full mark below where Trevor Lawrence was. But for the Jaguars, like this is a team to me, boys, like I thought maybe they would go out and add someone like an Isaiah Pacheco on the cheap because they do not have cap room. They do not have draft capital that they can bring in much in the running back room. I think it's going to be a split between the 2025 rookies, Bashaw Tootin and LeQuint Allen. And I think while Tootin is the explosive player, he's a flashy name, fastest 40 at the combine in 2025. I just think Allen is going to be the better value in drafts, guys, because LeQuint Allen, great pass catching chops. We saw only about 35, 40 touches, something like that in the run game for this guy. And he had 17 receptions. Like, and you go back to his time at Syracuse. It's kind of what this guy's been known for. He is gritty. He can get it done in a change of pace role, I believe, as well, but also a great pass catcher. So I don't think you let Travis Etienne walk if you're not comfortable with the running back room you have in Allen and Tootin. It's guys the head coach has invested in. So I think like I'm going to be spending a lot of late round picks specifically on LeQuint Allen Jr. here, rather than paying up maybe a 7th, 8th round price tag for my boy Bashaw Tootin. Steve, are you kind of in line with that as well? Do you like LeQuint Allen here?
I will be honest with you. I haven't thought about LeQuint Allen at all. When ETN news broke, I was waiting for someone else to sign there. I expect a Rashad White or something like that. Just kind of a quick, simple move. If it doesn't happen, I like LeQuint Allen. I like that talent quite a bit, actually. And I like your breakdown for it a lot. It still remains to be seen if they'll give him kind of that RB2 role, or if they will bring in another veteran running back. There's quite a few on the market still, so it's not necessarily like a done deal.
Sure.
It's not even necessarily a done deal that Bashaw Tootin will be the RB1 when all is said and done. So I think there's a lot up in the air, but should the dust settle and this is the 1-2 punch, I like this a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Eric, any thoughts here on LeQuint Allen Jr., a guy that I've been in love with for really before the draft process? Syracuse back in 2024 helped me catch some pretty nice betting tickets, and when I kind of got wind of this guy, and every year I feel like in best ball I have like 1 or 2 running backs that I'm way overexposed to in the late rounds. I think it's going to be LeQuint Allen this year, my friend.
Yeah, I don't mind it. Legitimately open question as to whether or not they make any additions to this backfield. If they don't, I mean, Allen is certainly going to be the better value, right? It'll probably be 4 or 5 rounds, if not more, after where Bashaw Tootin's coming off the board. Very much so a PPR play, right? You look at these two guys; they have a pretty similar weight. LeQuint Allen is a few inches taller, so for me, as we talk about kind of goal line and red zone packages, we tend to see these kind of more compact, low center of gravity guys get the first crack at the goal line work. So I think that that favors Tootin. But when you look at Allen, and I mean he outpaced Bashaw Tootin in terms of route run and route participation 2-1 roughly, right? So he should be the favorite to get that passing down work, and this should be a Jaguars offense that is going to be moving the ball up and down the field. So definitely the better value, definitely a good guy to have in your portfolio.
And Eric, obviously we don't know the future of Alvin Kamara right now. He's definitely the biggest loser of this whole ordeal, right? And then like I think as far as like if you were ever hoping Kendre Miller would be a thing for the Saints, like you can cut him from dynasty teams. Like I was never in on Kendre Miller coming out of TCU on that championship run back there with Max Duggan and the boys, but for me, like they still have Devin Neal. I think he's a great second punch out there to Travis Etienne. So are you okay with letting go Miller from dynasty circles? And is there a favorite landing spot you would have for Alvin Kamara?
No, I don't think that there's a place that really jumps out for Alvin Kamara in terms
Hopefully
of
not
where
the Jaguars.
he'll be
That'd be a
able
bummer.
Yeah, if they just do the old switcheroo, that would just be a fly in the ointment for everyone. Look, I don't know if there's going to be a role for him that will utilize his skill set in a way that will lead to the requisite amount of fantasy points, right? So
I have one.
it might be more of like kind of a streamer bye week type of guy. For Kendre Miller, I don't know if I would cut him so fast.
Okay.
I was generally in lockstep with you. He wasn't a prospect that I was super excited about. But the fact that he was perennially in the doghouse and just having absolute trash talked on his name year after year, and then all of a sudden we see Kellen come in and give this guy a little bit of an opportunity and let him play it out on the field. Like I don't know if that equity is entirely down the drain yet, right? So I wouldn't make any brash moves in terms of the RB2 in New Orleans until we have a little bit more proof of concept between Miller and Devin Neal.
Steve, what's your landing spot you like for Kamara?
Denver.
Oh, come on. They don't need him. They
Sure do. They sure do.
Let's go ahead and
passes.
Let's talk about Denver then, Steve, because you actually see RJ Harvey as a winner. They do bring back J.K. Dobbins on a 2-year, $20 million contract. Very happy for J.K. just finally getting a 2-year deal here after, spending a couple, a year here at the Chargers, a year here in Denver. Felt like he really found a home before he got banged up. He was a fantasy stud for a majority of the season. You don't think, though, this hurts RJ Harvey's fantasy stock, though?
I don't. I think this is going to be kind of like a changing of the guard. I think it's more of we don't feel like bringing someone in who has to learn the system. I think Eric's going to break it down much more eloquently when I'm done, that this is much more of a 1-year deal that's been prettied up to be a 2-year deal. Eric is always savvy when it comes to contract language like that. This bodes well that the big name are like running backs on the market didn't end up in Denver when Denver really kind of looked like they needed a running back from somewhere. This is showing that there's at least more runway for Harvey, right? It didn't look great last year, but I think I was concerned that they were like, hey, you know what? See you later. We're done. Like, let's get out of this before it takes too long. But it seems like the runway has been extended. I think that's a good sign for RJ Harvey. They didn't bring in someone who's better at pass catching than him yet. So I think there's a very significant role in that offense for him.
Eric, I do believe the pass catching role is Harvey's safely. However, he's kind of in that RB dead zone right now. To me, he's RB 23 going off the board on underdog at 56 overall. And I just worry that this could be like almost a Ramondre Stevenson type of situation about how he was super annoying. And I got 4 freaking games for Travion Henderson in the playoffs, and he still didn't cash my 100+ playoff rushing yard ticket that I had. Like, I'm just worried that it could be one of these types of situations where we start the season, everyone's drafting Harvey as a 5th, 6th round pick, and it's still J.K. Dobbins, because that's how it was last year and both guys were healthy.
Yeah, I don't think that's entirely unreasonable, right? We've seen Sean Payton kind of make his hay featuring a split workload out of the backfield for years now, right? I kind of liken it to some of the hypotheticals that we laid out when we were talking about Ashton Jeanty earlier, right? The fact that the Broncos acknowledge that they need some additional firepower in the backfield, but they go out and bring in an older guy who's got a pretty limited workload, or a skill set, I should say, and has a very checkered injury history. It's absolutely a feather in the cap for RJ Harvey, right? If they go out and they get a young guy, or they go out and get a guy that has more of an overlapping skill set with that of Harvey, then it's alarm bells going off, right? So the fact that they didn't, I think does bode well for him. RJ Harvey overall, probably a little bit too rich for my liking in the redraft streets. He's absolutely a sell in Dynasty. He was a sell from the moment that he got drafted at nearly 26 years old. So, just a little bit too old for my liking in the Dynasty world. So if there are people in your Dynasty league that feels like they missed the bogey, and they now have a viable young running back in RJ Harvey, that is someone that you should try to go and offload this player onto their roster as quickly as you can, at least for my money.
The last winner we have here on the list from free agency is Luther Burn III out of Chicago. The Bills, of course, they gave up a 2nd round pick to get DJ Moore and a 5th rounder back from the Bears. Eric, for me, I've been out on Burden as a prospect, like coming into last season. I really like what he did. down the stretch. He was super viable to bet on. If you're betting Luther Burden reception props like I was in the postseason, you were cashing some really nice money. So I love that. And I will say I think he's a better player than I gave credit for. That said, he's wide receiver 21 right now on Underdog, 42 overall. So, you're really paying a 4th round price tag. Do you think that's justified now that DJ Moore is out of the room and he is going ahead of someone like Rome Odunze, who does have 2 years of experience under his belt?
I do think that's justified. Luther Burden is the clear winner of the DJ Moore trade in my mind, right? If for nothing else, when he was drafted, he was kind of viewed as, at least by Ben Johnson and the Bears administration, as like a souped up DJ Moore, right? And I was actually with you heading into the prospect and draft process for Luther Burden. I wasn't particularly excited about him as a prospect. And I remember saying it clearly after he got drafted. He had to go out and land in the perfect situation for his skill set, right? A guy that can be absolutely schemed up, that can, take advantage of his freakish athletic nature, a guy that can, streak down the field and bring you those spike plays and those splash plays that you're looking for, right? So now we're looking at a reality where Luther Burden can step right into that flanker role that DJ Moore left behind. Rome Odunze also sees his arrow go up a bit, but not quite as much, right? He was already locked into that X role as it was. Yep. We're not really going to see his volume change all that much, unless suddenly, we're talking about Ben Johnson throwing to the outside at a disproportionate rate than he has at any other point in his coaching career, right? So we kind of know what to expect out of Rome Odunze. And Luther Burden, granted, while it was with Rome Odunze on the sideline, in the games where he was operating as the wide receiver 2 in this offense, he was a top 10 wide receiver in points per game, right? That 4-week stretch absolutely went out there and posted some absurd numbers. And then we have to consider the fact that I don't think we've seen anywhere near the peak output of this Bears offense generally, right? Caleb Williams still has not become the first Bears passer to surpass 4,000 passing yards, right? I kind of feel like the early days of Joe Burrow here, where the receivers were putting up gaudy numbers, but he hadn't got anywhere near the peak output of his ability as a passer and his ability to post yardage there. So if we're talking about a more consolidated offense where Caleb Williams is now passing for 4,200, 4,400 yards, that 4th round price tag on Luther Burden is going to look like a steal.
Steve, Luther Burden, 42 overall. We also have Colston Loveland, the tight end there for Chicago, 43 overall. Or would you prefer Rome Odunze, 52 overall? If you had to pay for one of those players, who is it? Or are you just too rich for your blood?
It's Luther Burden. I think I could be okay with that. Yeah.
Okay.
I like Luther Burden.
Okay. I think I'll probably be the low guy on him again, but it's totally justifiable, especially with what you're saying, Eric, and the sample size we saw down the stretch last season. And a lot of those gimmicky plays that are drawn up for Luther Burden, a lot of them also are drawn up for DJ Moore, right? The swing passes, the jet the jet touches, that type of stuff. So yeah, maybe I'm coming around. I'm coming around, boys. I'm coming around on Luther Burden. Insert the Wolf of Wall Street join us gif. Yes. Yes, there you go. I haven't seen that movie in a while. I did that one time when I was under the influence of certain substances, and I've not done those substances since.
That could be your popcorn and root beer movie.
That might not be a bad one. That might be a decent rewatch.
Are you insinuating that you watch Wolf of Wall Street while you're popping some lewds?
I don't know what lewds are specific. Yeah, I don't know what lewds are specifically, or if that could get me in trouble. Yeah, we'll just leave it no comment. But just one time taking a substance and hadn't taken it again. But Wolf of Wall Street really brought me back down to base. So I really appreciate that movie in that time period for sure. Something I don't appreciate though was this news. Tyler Allgeier has agreed to a 2-year, $12.25 million extension or contract, with the Arizona Cardinals. And this comes right on the heels of James Conner renegotiating his contract with the Cardinals. And while this may not sound like a big deal, like, oh, it's just Tyler Allgeier, let's rewind the tape. Allgeier went over 1,000 rushing yards as a rookie, and then he averaged over 600 rushing yards, 5.3 touchdowns in 3 seasons, working behind one of the league's best running backs in Bijan Robinson, right, boys? So to me, the signals Jeremiah Love not going there at 3, right? We can cross that off the NFL draft bingo card. it also essentially, to me, zaps all the value out of this room. Like, I wasn't going to be back in on James Conner probably anyways, 30 years old, coming off another season-ending injury. I had already kind of, lumped Trey Benson into potential bust category. And I think he's in there now as well because he's coming off a season-ending injury as well. So, and like, it doesn't help. This is a below average offensive line. This doesn't help Nathaniel Hackett on the sticks right now too. So, Steve, you have been the guy you've caped up for over 2 years for your man Trey Benson out of Florida State University. Is it time to finally put this to rest now that it's really feels like a three-headed monster?
I'm not ready to call time of death yet, but it's definitely not looking good. We're circling the drain on Trey Benson at this point. And I don't think it has anything to do with talent. I think that knee is just a mess. And he had what was considered a career-ending injury in college. Somehow comes back, has a really productive year for Florida State, comes out, has a quiet rookie year, doesn't really get the opportunities. His first start,
I know.
that knee gives out.
Yeah.
And if you're a coaching staff, if you're a GM, if you're anything, you know that, right? Like, you know that knee was an issue. And the first time he got real touches, he went down. And it's like, and then it turned into this weird game where it was like, oh yeah, it seems minor, happened on like the second to last play of the game. Then it was he's on IR. Then it was he's getting surgery. Then it's he'll be back after the 4 weeks. Then it's like we're gonna go week to week, day to day, back to week, out for the year. That indicates that the healing didn't happen medically. It looks like there's a real problem here with Trey Benson.
Okay.
So while I'm not ready to call TOD, I am ready to say that we are circling the drain. Perhaps get the priest in here, get some last rites going on, because things are not looking great for Trey Benson, and that hurts me to say.
I can tell. I can hear the pain in your voice, my friend, but I appreciate you, coming to terms with it. Eric, right now on Underdog, Tyler Allgeier going off the board, RB 31. He's been one of the biggest risers over the past few days. James Conner, RB 43. And then when it comes to our boy Trey Benson, right now, RB 42. Do you have a preference in that group at those price tags, or is it just like, hey, it's a no from me, dog? Because that's kind of how I feel on the Cardinals. I wouldn't mind a Tyler Allgeier share, but not at that price tag.
Yeah, I mean, generally in these murky situations, it's like go for the cheapest guy. Unfortunately, we're talking about best ball context, and the cheapest guy is probably the worst of the lot in the short term. So more often than not, I'm probably going to be passing on my exposure to the Cardinals running backs, unless we get some like very clear reporting that there is going to be a head and shoulders primary option out of that backfield.
Yeah.
But in the dynasty context, if the market is cool to the point where Steve Lawson is ready to give up on Trey Benson,
I didn't say I was ready to give up.
The price is
we
right.
We were in trouble.
The fact that Steve is saying anything other than a glowing review of Trey Benson's profile as a dynasty prospect is all the market indication that we need. It is absolutely risky. It is not something that you should hang your hat on, but you can quite literally go out, get Trey Benson for pennies on the dollar, right? We were talking earlier about a guy in J.K. Dobbins, who granted has a very different skill set than that of Trey Benson, but a guy who was plagued by injury in the early days of his career and managed to deliver not insignificant productivity for his dynasty managers, right? So I'm going out there floating just absolute thief in the night offers to Trey Benson, if for no other reason that, I mean, you look at Tyler Allgeier, his career high in receptions is 18. James Conner had a solid year floating in the mid 40s, but those days are clearly behind him, right? So, you look for the guy that has a skill set that is non-duplicative in this backfield. It is Trey Benson. You very well might be stepping on a whammy because, if that knee doesn't recover, it's all for naught. But if you're giving up scraps to have access to a guy that might emerge down the road, stash him on your taxi squad, I'm willing to try and scratch that lottery ticket.
A few final losers we have here. First, the Tennessee Titans wide receivers, because Broadway was buzzing yesterday. I mean, it's Eric, you've been in Broadway? You've been to Nashville before?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sure you have. Yeah. So I'm sure it's always buzzing, bachelorette, bachelor trips on Broadway. Ain't my style. I mean, trust me, I would love to boot, scoot, and boogie down there sometime. Just not like a bachelor party type thing for me. I'll do that one day, hopefully with the wife. But Wan'Dale Robinson signs down there 4-year, $70 million deal with the Titans. Former Kentucky Wildcat here and really reuniting with his former head coach, new offensive coordinator, Brian Dable. There should be the de facto number one option for Cam Ward, who has really just done great stuff with slot wide receivers, right? We can go back to his days at Miami with Xavier Restrepo, or we can go back to his days out at Wazoo, Kyle Williams working out of the slot, or we don't even have to go back that far. And just last year, Chimere Dike had a couple big performances as well. But I just expect that Robinson is going to, once again, probably lead the league in snaps out of the slot like he did a season ago, and also going to be rounding up corners on 1 and 2 wide receiver sets with this money. I think this really is going to hurt Calvin Ridley when he gets back from injury. I think this hurts Chimere DK the most, who's going to be in that slot role, you would think. And our boy Elic Ayomanor, who I was way too high on apparently a year ago. Are you guys kind of in consensus with me here that Titans receivers losers across the board?
Yeah, but
the incumbent receivers are down horrendous right now, right?
Okay.
These were guys that were hopeful that they could parlay at least minimal competition, target competition into something meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
And now Dayball goes out and brings all of his boys in, right? He's got Wan'Dale Robinson. Let's not forget that he also goes out and overpays for Daniel Bellinger as well, right?
Oh, good point. Good point.
Dayball clearly is going to prioritize the guys that he hand selected. Not to mention that both of those guys are demonstrably better than what we've seen out of the youngsters so far and the husk of Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, I mean, I'll still take my shot, I think, on Alec, like late best ball. But outside of that, he's probably off the redraft board. Eric, last faller you had Kyler Murray, who is yet to land on a team. The Cardinals right now playing some chess, not checkers, where, hey, we're not going to release him until the deadline when we have to, right before we owe him that guaranteed bonus for this upcoming season. So he kind of misses this initial wave of free agency. However, what I'm hearing, and I think what most people are hearing out there in the NFL streets, is that maybe it's a possible landing spot with the Vikings. However, you have as a loser, so please elaborate on that as we round out the program.
Yeah, look, I mean, for the quarterback market this year, one of the weirdest markets that we've seen in recent memory. Sure. And if nothing else, with how the Cardinals are playing this, it's a game of musical chairs where there all of a sudden aren't very many seats left for Kyler Murray. Arguably, at least for my money, the most talented of the available quarterbacks in this year's free agency or cut candidate market, right? So now we're talking about a reality where it's essentially the Vikings or bust. Right? Maybe Aaron Rodgers doesn't come back.
Oh,
maybe
please,
you get
don't
that
put that
coveted Browns starting quarterback position, right? Like, what else is really out there for Kyler Murray?
Yeah.
The conventional wisdom is that it should be, or hopefully would be, the Minnesota Vikings. But I don't know if we can say that confidently, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if nothing else, the reporting that came out today about their heavy interest in Geno Smith before he got traded to the New York Jets indicates to me they're not looking for a young, talented option. They're looking for a veteran that can be either a bridge guy or can serve to push JJ McCarthy in a competition. And Kyler Murray is neither of those things. If you're signing Kyler Murray, it's because you want him to be starting for several years. And I don't think the Vikings necessarily do. So now the music has come to a stop. And what chair is there for Kyler Murray?
Steve, favorite landing spot that Kyler could land at? Is it still Minnesota? Because I am kind of with Eric now, actually. Like, that doesn't really make sense from a leadership and like someone who won't push JJ out of the job immediately.
It's Minnesota because JJ stinks. Like, I don't know how else to put this.
I just don't know if they will.
They will. They're going to. All the rumors coming out are that it's over for JJ McCarthy. They've seen enough.
7, 8, 10 games. Give him a break.
No, I will not give him a break. He stinks.
All right. Well,
JJ McCarthy, go hold the clipboard in Green Bay. You'll be signing a huge contract before you know it.
JJ McCarthy, go hold the clipboard at the local grocery store and get out of the NFL. Get out of my face.
Well, you can talk about that on another program. But, gentlemen, great stuff tonight on the In Between Fantasy Football podcast. That is going to do it for us, though. If you rode along with us so far, please make sure you give this video a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe to that entire channel as well. Here on the IBT podcast YouTube channel, we have just football just for you all the time. But if you go over to the main IBT channel, we also have college football betting, NASCAR betting, PGA betting, and entertainment betting and opinion, all to help you cash more and to enjoy the ride along the way. Also, be sure to check out in-betweenmedia.com. We got dope written content, events now live. Draft Night Out 2026 tickets are up. We also have IBT Classic tickets for the same weekend as well out there at the Fantasy Football Expo. And be sure to check out the community, in-betweenmedia.com/chat. Come out, hang out with us. We're talking all weekend long, all week long. It's been such a blessing to chat with more people in the community and really engage with folks offline when we're not on air as well. So we really appreciate that. For Stephen Lawson and, of course, Big Tex, Eric Romoff, I'm Seth Wilcock. Thank you so much for watching and keep it in between until next time.